Yes, our next question comes from the line of Greg Seaton with Deadbolt.com.
Hi, Anna. I want to know, well, how emotionally invested do you get in the two Olivias, given how the alternate world affects her relationship in the other world?
Extremely, I think. Extremely. Because I said that earlier with an earlier question. It's like it feels very different, even the shooting, like the dynamic even on set, because you've got, like a completely, bunch of different people and different kind of, even the crime scenes are kind of handled differently. There's like it feels very kind of different, and there's pros and cons to both sides, and I love parts of both sides, but I feel, it's like because we've been flipping a bit, like early on, and so, you rock up to start the episode in the alternate universe, and it's like, hey, how you doing? To beautiful Kirk and Seth and, our sweet Astrid, and it's like you kind of love it, and then the episode ends, and you're like, oh, and then you come back and you're like, oh, that's right, we're back in the lab, and we've got Walter and Peter, and so both. I can't choose between yet. Yeah.
And when you first signed on to the series, did you have any idea of how deep Fringe would go in terms of some of the options with the alternate universe?
No, I really didn't. I didn't really know what to expect, and it sort of has exceeded my expectations, and has done for a long time. I really didn't know, and I also really didn't. I didn't think, oh, it's a sci-fi. Like, I don't really know what I expected, but I've been thrilled.
Our next question comes from the line of Alice Chapman Nugent with Time Courier.
Hi, Anna. I'm so glad you could take our calls.
Hi, thank you.
I know you're so busy and everything. Was there any particular episode or scene that came off more challenging to you than usual in either character or mindset?
There's been a few. There's been a few, but more often than not, it's the scenes that you wouldn't expect to be challenging. It's the ones where they're doing the same thing. It's like them rocking up to a crime scene. Like, how does Olivia handle it versus how does Olivia handle it? It's the sitting around and gathering information. They're the bits that you have to. I kind of go, oh, what are they both thinking? Like, what's the differences in their thoughts? Not so much the bigger stuff, which is kind of like a little bit more, padded, I guess.
Okay. Well, overall, what is it about Fringe that you like?
I like that it's just so broad. It doesn't sit in any particular genre. It's scary. I think it's kind of mystical. I think there's sometimes, we've had episodes that I think are really quite magic. I think there are parts of it that are really heightened. There's parts of it that's really kind of down and dirty. It's got humor and a little bit of romance. And I think the fact that it's so broad in its spectrum and in its stories, and that it's unafraid, I think, to kind of go, let's just take this leap, shall we? And we all go, yeah, let's.
Are there any particular topics that have really fascinated you that you guys have covered?
Really early on, there was I think even the second episode or something, there was a case where Walter was talking about, his research with William Bell, where they were working at developing, soldiers, like seeing how quickly they could grow these, genetically engineer these soldiers. There's been other ones since then too, but any of that kind of like that real ethical fine line, it always gets me kind of interested, because I think I'm interested in that ethical and moral kind of divide between humanity and science, and how far can you take things for the greater good, and what is the greater good and what isn't, and those bits always pique my interest. Josh, I just got a knock on the door.
All right, well, let's proceed with one more question, and I'll get in touch with production.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
Final question comes from the line of Charles J. Anders with IO9. Please go ahead.
Charlie J. Anders with IO9.com. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us in the middle of your busy day. So I know that you did a lot of Shakespeare earlier in your career. You toured with the Bell Shakespeare Company, and I think you toured as Ophelia at one point early on. How does doing Shakespeare prepare you for a story like this, where there's a lot of doubling and mistaken identities and deceptions and people pretending to be each other and all that sort of thing?
I don't know. I always think of I don't know. I guess maybe in the sense that when you're doing, I don't know, I guess it's all that kind of like big themes, like, all Shakespeare stuff is all just big themes, like, the most amazing love in your life, or the most, scary war, all of this. And Fringe is like, I am constantly, essentially saving the world.
Right.
So I think that it's just, you just have to buy it, or you just have to go, I really am. And when you say those lines like, the shapeshifters, are going to destroy our universe, you have to say it with a straight face. But I think the similarity that's so interesting that you say that, because I've thought for a long time the similarities between our beautiful, beautiful Walter and Shakespeare's Fool is probably...
Shakespeare's Fool, you said?
Yeah, Shakespeare's Fool, like the...
Not Lear?
Fool. No, I don't think so. I think the Fools, and I think that is what Walter kind of, that is what Walter kind of is. I think that the Fools in Shakespeare's plays are always the wisest, and yet always, making a joke of this, and yet you get them down there often the saddest there. I think that's, yeah, absolutely the Fools, particularly Lear's Fools. Yeah.
Cool. And the other thing is,
especially last year, there was a lot of stuff about how Olivia is so repressed and how she's not in touch with her emotions. A lot of stuff last year about how Olivia is very repressed and she's not in touch with her emotions. And now
it seems like you're getting to play her, both versions of Olivia much more emotional and open. And is that a welcome change?
Absolutely, but I didn't mind her being that kind of repressed. I actually think that there was something kind of, I know this sounds so counterintuitive, but there's something actually kind of liberating in that. Because I think that I don't think that so often, you've got the guys that are, the quiet, silent types that, do all the tough stuff, and then you've got the girls that are all emoting and chatting and talking about their feelings, working out their relationships. And I think that that's kind of one of the subtle things that Fringe has always turned on its head. You've got the woman who doesn't really talk all that much, who's kind of extremely repressed, who just does the job. Doesn't have much of a life at home. And then you've got the two guys sit around in the lab, which, essentially is, the kitchen cooking, cookies and trying to work out where they stand with each other, And so I actually have always found that side of it really interesting. And I think, why can't a woman be kind of a little cooler, in her emotions, and a little kind of quieter and a little kind of repressed without, it being a big thing. So I've actually always really quite enjoyed that, to tell you the truth. But yeah, obviously, getting out of the piece suit's been like a little bit of fun.
Our next question comes from the line of Michelle St. James with Damon TV.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for taking these questions.
A pleasure.
I'm just wondering, do you think that Altivia has any qualities that Olivia might wish she had?
Yes. I think they both do, in fact. But yes, I think that Olivia would. I don't know if it's Olivia or if it's me. But I think Olivia is sort of. I think that she admires heaps of qualities. I'm trying to think of specifically. I guess there's. I think that Olivia's main struggle is fundamentally the fact that she feels so responsible for everything and for everyone. And I think that she would like to be able to leave her work at work, to kind of go home and put the weight of the world on somebody else's shoulder for a minute, and not feel like if she doesn't do it, nobody will. I think that's probably the biggest thing, and I think that's probably Olivia's lesson. But then I don't know if people change. I don't know if you're capable of really changing such a fundamental core belief. But I think that's what she would like. I think that would kind of enable her to breathe deeply and see the world in a little bit of a rosier fashion.
And then I just have one little silly thing. I really love all the differences we're seeing in the alternate universe, like dogs on Broadway instead of cats. And
I love that.
And I'm just wondering if you have a particular favorite of those little Easter egg things.
That was my favorite because I didn't notice it the first day. No one said anything. And then I went in and then I looked, and that really cracked me up. I think that was my favorite.